Do you care if the sun is still out when you leave work? A bit of history. Daylight saving time was created in 1918 during World War I to save energy. The business industry liked it because you can get more done. A lot of moms and dads and pet owners are not crazy about it because, as a lot of us know, kids and pets and many adults don't take well to schedule changes. The question is it one of the top issues in the Florida legislature that it needs to take action on? State Senator Greg Steube thinks so, and joining us for more is State Senator Greg Steube, former State Representative Keith Fitzgerald, who teaches political science at New College, and Kevin Cooper, president of the Greater Sarasota Chamber of Commerce. If anything, what this shows us and what Jess just reported is you can go up to your state representative or senator in a place like a barbershop, suggest a bill that turns into a real bill in Tallahassee.
It's the greatest example of how a bill may become a law. I mean, there's not a better way of the citizenry and constituents coming to their elected official and saying, hey, this is something that we think needs to be changed. And it was interesting because, I mean, what you talked about beforehand did a good job of kind of talking about how it all happened. But as I walked into the barbershop, they were like, hey, we were just talking about you. And is this something you can change? Yeah, in this case it was. And, you know, it was something that at first I didn't think would be that big of an issue. And it's turned into something that affects all of us and has been an issue where if you look across the state, it's like 75–80% of folks think we should do away with swatching the times.
Keith, you've been there yourself, and you teach kids about how Tallahassee works. How many times in any legislative session do state reps and state senators bring along these types of bills, and how often do they get somewhere and how often do they not?
Well, first of all, I agree that people can actually influence their legislator to do things while they're up there. My friend Bob Graham, Senator Bob Graham, and Chris Hand wrote a little book, sort of a citizen's guide to how you do this. You can do it. Most people just don't have the wherewithal, the know-how, how to make it happen. So if you can figure it out, you can get things done. But one of the things that any legislator has to do, since it's very difficult for people to understand what they're up to, what they're actually doing, is sort of advertise their activity. And so a lot of legislators will put bills in that show that they are listening to their constituents. Most of them don't go anywhere. That doesn't mean that it's a useless thing to do or an unimportant thing to do.
Kevin, I've heard two things from the business community in the articles that I wrote. I mean, on one hand, businesses would like it to be lighter out, longer in the day. On the other hand, some businesses or corporations may not like the fact that they would be out of sync of surrounding states. We reported there are a handful of states that have eliminated daylight savings time, but not all. You know, what kind of things do you hear in our community?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag in that respect, and I think what you need to consider when looking at those two sides of it is the short-term cost of adjusting to it and then the long-term benefit of it. And remember, business owners are citizens, just like those Senator Steube ran into, that are looking at, well, what happens with my kids? What happens with my dog? Do I want to get home from work at 6 o'clock when it's dark and not have any time to spend outside? And so they're looking at it from both sides of the things, and I would presume from a short-term cost perspective of adjusting to the fact that, hey, we might be switching. But we have if you're doing a business around the country, Arizona, Hawaii, they don't practice this at all. And there's ways that we've found to do business in this state, have commerce cross state lines and do that. So presumably it can happen. It's not an insurmountable thing. And then the personal and business benefits that you might inure from it could outweigh it.
Okay, we are just getting warmed up, and we'll have much more on daylight savings time right after we take a check of the first alert weather. Stay with us.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Our accredited staff will handle all of the Medicare paperwork for free, and best of all, your brace is shipped directly to your home for free. Don't let chronic lower back pain slow you down. Get moving and stay active with a medical-grade back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost. We also accept Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, Aetna, Humana, and other insurance. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace covered by Medicare? Find out for free.
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-715-0835. That's 1-800-715-0835, 1-800-715-0835.
We are problem solvers striving for answers. Relevancy on every platform. We are driven to create content that's compelling, engaging, where it matters. We are neighbors that care about solutions, believers in making a difference, leaders, innovating in an exciting era of multimedia, reaching to always be the gold standard in our evolving landscape. We are Raycom Media. Find your opportunity today.
Are you a food lover, restaurant goer, or home cook? Then check out My Suncoast Dining on mysuncoast.com, your guide to the foodie lifestyle. ABC7's own Chef Judy serves up her favorite recipes, cooking tips and trends, dining blogs, and helpful step-by-step videos. And you'll love the restaurant guide with direct links to your favorite Suncoast eateries. Whether you're cooking in or dining out, whet your appetite with tasty tips from Chef Judy at mysuncoast.com/dining.
To be able to just get my son here and not think about how we will pay for it, it just takes so much weight off of my family. St. Jude allowed me to focus on being a mom to Bryce. And sometimes I'm just in awe of the impact St. Jude has, not only on this community, but the world.
Our conversation on daylight saving time continues right after we get a check on the first alert forecast with meteorologist Steve Newman. Steve.
I hope you liked today and enjoyed the warmth, because it's probably the last of the temperatures in the 70s and being in the 60s in the evening, as a series of cool fronts will come through and drop our temperatures over the next week to considerably cooler than normal. At 5:45, 5:50, we saw the sun setting over Sarasota Bay in the Gulf of Mexico. Currently at the airport, it is 68, the dew point 61. Humidity 78%, and those north winds are ushering in drier air that will drop our temperatures oh so slightly tomorrow and then more as we move into the weekend. These are high temperatures today, 76 at Tampa, 80 at Fort Myers, and you can kind of see the boundary between in that stationary front with the cooler and drier air to the north and temperatures in the low 80s down south. Across our viewing area, 78 in Sarasota, 75 at Arcadia, Lake Placid 79. Now, a taste of winter is ahead. Not talking about a big drop in temperatures over the next week, but we are going to see temperatures slide over the weekend, 3-4 degrees into the 70s. We do have some high clouds to the north of us, and off the Atlantic coast, there's a little low forming off the Atlantic coast off Cape Canaveral that's producing some showers up there, and we also have some showers up in the northern part of the state. Looking at the current weather pattern, it is bitterly cold up north. Look at that Alberta Clipper moving across the northern states around Chicago, getting some snow. And the temperatures right now, I think we've got some problems with the computer. Let's come back and do weather in a little bit.
There's nothing like this trail in Alabama. It just goes from the northern part of the state to the southern part of the state. We see all kind of different terrains, great value, great fun. We've been coming for 18 years. We started off with a group of 8, grew to 12, and grew to 16. And we love it because where else can you get world-class golf courses with world-class accommodations? To be able to play these type of courses in this environment, and the difficulty keeps us coming back over and over and over again.
Credit card debt can ruin your life. If you owe $10,000 and minimum payments are siphoning away your paycheck each month, you can get debt-free in less time than you think.
I've paid $800 a month for the past 3 years and haven't changed the balance on my credit card.
Get debt-free now has a program to reduce your debt, stop the harassing phone calls, avoid financial ruin, and settle for less than you owe.
I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off off my shoulders.
You're pre-approved for our special hardship program if you owe $10,000 or more. Upon payment of your new lower balance, your debt will finally shrink until you are debt-free.
My family no longer has 30 years of payments ahead of us at 20% interest.
There's no fees until you see results. So call now, make one monthly program payment, and free up your cash. Resolve your debt.
Call 800-628-1251, 800-628-1251.
Is your old garage door stuck or broken? Would a new one give you a lift? Let Precision Door Overhead Garage Door Service of Sarasota come to the rescue with prompt and affordable repair service. Replacement doors come with an array of styles and colors, and they are rated to meet and exceed Florida standards. From estimates to installation, your satisfaction is our priority. If you're not 100% satisfied with any product, service, or installation, we will make it right, because Precision Door Service is a name you can trust.
Stay connected to your clients and new customers using ABC7 Digital Media Services. Our team of professionals provide a wide array of digital services to help you get the most out of your website. We specialize in building and helping you maintain the most effective digital solutions for your business. It's vital that your online presence stands out, so our experts will equip you with the best resources available. Trust ABC7 Digital Media Services to give you the right tools to grow your business.
Welcome back. Should Florida get rid of daylight saving time? And joining us for more is State Senator Greg Stubbe, former State Representative Keith Fitzgerald, who teaches political science at New College, and Kevin Cooper, president of the Greater Sarasota Chamber of Commerce. One interesting part of this is, we have so many partisan issues in the state. This is not one of them, because I think you pointed out, Greg, that the last time this was proposed, it was in 2016 by a Democrat from Coconut Grove. But why didn't it go anywhere then?
He didn't have a Senate companion, so he filed a bill in the House, and there wasn't a Senate companion, so the bill basically died. And shortly after I filed the bill in the Senate, House leadership contacted me, and there's now a bill that's filed by Representative Nunez in the House, and she's in the leadership in the House, and I've got a pretty good feeling that it'll probably move on the House side.
Speaker Corcoran?
Yeah, I mean, Jeanette Nunez is Speaker Corcoran's pro temp, so if she's filing a bill, that's a pretty strong signal that the House leadership is in support of the direction that's going.
Now, there are pros and cons, and Kevin, I would imagine, and we were talking about this during the break, if Florida does this alone and surrounding states don't, what kind of problems does that cause business?
The problems are an adjustment period, and there's certainly a cost associated with it when you're talking about dealing with people out of different time zones. But across the United States, there's 4 different time zones. So those that are used to dealing outside of state commerce are already kind of used to a certain degree, dealing with different time zones. And so there's an adjustment period of understanding, how does that work? Where are my clients? Where are my suppliers? How does this operate? And so that's the really key part of it. It's not a wholly, out of the whack concept to think of dealing with different time zones inside the United States. We do that on a daily basis, whether you're getting on a plane, you fly somewhere, you land, you think you're late, but you're not late because the time changed and everything's fine. You can make that connection in Chicago even though the time zone is different. So it's really about the adjustment period. I think long term, the ramifications are minimal. It's really a short term, upfront, human nature cost of change, and that's the issue at hand.
And as I mentioned, this is something that has not been a partisan issue, but I would imagine, Senator, that there are a number of people who are watching this right now would say, geez, there are so many more pressing issues that the legislature has to deal with. We did a show yesterday on homelessness, and this keeps on coming up, how we are dead last in the country in spending on mental health and how much it costs us in other ways. Aren't those issues that you and other legislators should be spending more time on?
Well, there's a lot of issues. I think I have almost 50 bills filed this year. So in the Senate, we can get involved in a lot of different issues. And when you hear from your constituency that this is something that they want to see move forward, and you start a discussion and you see how much support there actually is in the state to move it forward, I think it's certainly an issue that needs to be discussed. And if it's something that the majority of the members support, we'll move it forward.
Keith, how does this usually work? What I have noticed in the Florida legislature is, the bills keep plodding along, and then you reach a bottleneck at the end of the session, and how is it decided which bills come up for a vote in both houses and which don't?
So the main driver of what bills get heard and don't get heard are the parties. And in fact, the majority party, because one way of thinking about parties, this is a political science thing, is more than determining votes themselves. They determine what gets on the agenda. That's why they have rules committees in legislatures. It sounds like a boring thing to be on a rules committee. It's always one of the most powerful committees because they're figuring out what bills come up at what time and under what rules in conjunction with the leadership. So the leadership is the most important thing. The majority of the party determines what bills come up and don't come up. And you know, there's always in every legislature different rules about how autonomous committee chairs are or are not. In the state house right now, boy, committee chairs don't have a whole lot of power. It really comes out of the Speaker's office. Senators are a little more independent. They can move things a little more if they have a committee chair. So it varies. And I would say the cost of doing a bill is not really great if it's not controversial and if it's not a big gnarly thing that takes a great deal of staff time. Controversial bills generally have a lot of cost attached to them.
Right, but Senator, have you received any pushback from anybody in the legislature, Republican or Democrat?
No, and what's been interesting is, you know, I filed it because folks in my constituency thought it was a good idea to file it, and there's been such a huge outpouring of support from a lot of parents with young children that say, it takes my kids 2-3 weeks to a month to adjust to falling back on the times, and that they would really support the time change. So I think it's something that if you look across the state, it's like a 75-80% approval rate to do away with the time change.
And pets, I might add, because our dogs got up an hour earlier when we thought we gained an hour, but you know, I digress. But for a moment, let's talk about why the government started this in the first place. As we mentioned, it goes back to World War I in an effort to conserve energy, which is something that we still should be conscious of. Why not be as conscious of, or has technology changed the fact that it's really not the same issue?
Well, it's interesting. In the early 2000s, the United States government extended daylight savings times by about 4 weeks, 2 weeks on either end. And part of that act was they required the Department of Energy to do a study to say, hey, did this have any impact? And what it showed, it was really de minimis. You did not see any massive change in energy consumption. I think it was about 0.3% change. But what you saw is you might save some energy in the summer, but then heating bills go up in the winter. And you see this, and especially now that we live in a different culture where you've got iPads, you've got electric vehicles, you've got a lot of different uses for a lot of different electricity consumption, where back in 1918, when this was first put in play during World War II, it was about fuel to light your home. It was about fuel to light the streets, and that's what it all was about. And so you have so many different things at play now, it's hard to really tell whether it has much of an impact. And that's why it makes such a great public policy study. It's not partisan, it's not incendiary like homelessness, it's not Republican, Democrat like taxation. It's a pure question of why do, what are the costs, and what are the benefits? And I think that's why it's a great conversation to have.
Also on that point, long-term versus short-term, because
that's right.
There would be upfront costs, no question about it. I don't know what they would be, but there would be some. Long term, it might be of benefit. I don't think anybody is crazy about this, and it's hard to say that it serves any particular purpose today.
But then the question obviously would be is why isn't the federal government taking this on? Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, what Florida would need to do is opt out of a federal law. If more and more people think this is the way to go, why isn't Congress just getting rid of it?
Well, they might. It usually takes Congress a long time to decide what to do once certain states start to do it. I mean, just look at medical marijuana, how long it's taken the federal government to do anything. They haven't done anything. You have, what, it's like 28 states now that recognize medical marijuana. So I think if Florida were to adopt this change, I think you'd see a lot of other southern states probably follow suit, and then Congress would probably say, okay, we've got a fair number of states that think this, you know, this was instituted back in World War I. It's not relevant to today, and states don't want to change their clocks back and forth. Let's just let them do what they want to do.
Well, it's not necessarily opting out of federal law. The federal law says you can choose A or you can choose B. It doesn't matter to us which one you choose. So the federal government isn't giving much guidance to the states. It just says, hey, if you're going to do this, that's fine. If you're going to do that, that's fine. There's very minimal guidance about where the time zone lines fall within the state in case a state falls in the middle of a time zone. They have some intricacies there, but it's not about opting out. The federal government hasn't given really stern, firm direction one way or the other. It says, hey, you can kind of do
well,
what
and
you
on that issue with the two different time zones, because our panhandle is in Central Time, so they're an hour back, and I can't tell you how many people have contacted me and the senators in the districts that represent the panhandle who have said, we want to be in Eastern Time. We don't want to be an hour behind. So that may be something that we discuss as this bill moves forward to make the whole state into one time zone.
Two questions about that. So that is not part of this bill as
Not
as we
currently,
speak.
but I think it will as it moves forward.
How did we get to a point where you had different parts of the state in different time zones in the first place?
No idea.
Well, it's just by geography, basically. The sun is setting earlier in one part of the state than the other. I mean, that's why we have time zones in the first place. That's fixed in nature. Not where the lines are drawn exactly, but just the fact that you need different time zones. But, about Congress, the United States federal government, Congress is going in the opposite direction of medical marijuana, so you can't count on them. And the other thing, the United States Congress is hardly doing anything. This last year was one of the lowest levels of legislation in modern times. So I don't think you can count on the federal government coming in and addressing an issue, even if it's not particularly controversial.
Well, that is the thing. I mean, if you're talking about medical marijuana, there are those who support it and who do not support it. This, as we have been talking about, is not something that traditionally has been a partisan issue.
Yeah, it's not, and I think to Senator Stubbe's point, I think if the dominoes start to fall with Florida, and Florida does the heavy lifting of showing how it can be done, I don't see any reason that other southern states wouldn't follow suit. Especially if you go with the House bill that says, hey, you're going to get an hour, when we hit daylight savings time, we're going to stay there. I think largely when you talk to people in an anecdotal sense, it's very popular amongst the constituency of, hey, I like summertime versus wintertime. They don't know the difference between standard and daylight saving, and so when you get there, I think you'd see the dominoes fall.
One more question. We have less than a minute left, but has this been assigned to committee yet?
Yeah, I have 3 committees in the Senate. I don't know about the committee references in the House, but I've got 3 committees in the Senate, and I've reached out to committee chair of the first committee, Community Affairs, it's Senator Lee, and I'm hopeful that he'll get it up in the first or second week of session.
Right, and is there, Keith, very quickly, is there a secret in terms of if a bill is assigned to several committees, whether or not it's more or less likely to pass?
It depends on the rules. In some legislatures, it has to go through each and every committee, so the more barriers there are, the lower the chances. In others, it can pass out of any committee, so it depends on the rules of the particular legislature.
Okay, we have to take a quick break, and we'll be back for final thoughts in a moment.
I'm calling in regards about my mother, and I'm here, and I just want to thank you because it saved my mother's life yesterday. And I'd like to know the names of the people that came in and saved her so I could call and thank them. And she's doing fine. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
When you fall and cannot get up, an accident can turn into a tragedy. But with Life Alert, one touch of a button can get you help fast. Life Alert saves a person from a catastrophe every 10 minutes.
Life Alert is a lifesaver. If it weren't for Life Alert, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
For a free Life Alert brochure, call 1-800-652-3012. That's 1-800-652-3012. Call now, 1-800-652-3012. For a free brochure, call 1-800-652-3012.
Mark Zupan, part of the U.S. Paralympic rugby team. In my game, movement is everything. I get frustrated when my move is blocked, especially when that guy has no right to be there, even just for a minute. I love a challenge, but I don't like to play this game every day.
A message from the United Spinal Association.
Thanks to all of you who participated in ABC7's Paris Vacation Giveaway Contest. Join us as we congratulate our grand prize winner, Heather Caston of Bradenton. She and her husband Clint are going on an amazing 6-night dream vacation for 2 to Paris, the most romantic city in the world.
Thank you, ABC7. We're going to Paris.
Congratulations, Heather and Clint. We hope you have the trip of your lives. ABC7, we're here for you. Check out My Suncoast Dining on mysuncoast.com, your guide to the foodie lifestyle. ABC7's own Chef Judy serves up her favorite recipes, cooking tips and trends, dining blogs, step-by-step videos, and Suncoast Restaurant Guide. You'll find it all at mysuncoast.com/dining.
Our guest joined us right now for final thoughts. So, Senator, where do we go from here? How soon are we going to see whether or not this is going to get anywhere in the legislature?
Session starts January 9th. It's got 3 committee stops. hopefully if it gets up in the first committee that first week of session, then it's got 2 more committee stops, and you've got 8 weeks in order to get that through. And given that the House leadership is supportive of it on the House side, I think it'll move through the House. So I think it's just watching to see what happens on the Senate side and if the bill moves. And if it moves and if it starts to move through the process, I feel pretty confident that it'll pass.
Keith, I'm going to ask you a question I don't know if you have an answer for, but how many bills are filed in the legislature every year by the House and the Senate, and how many actually get voted into law?
You know, I forget the proportion mathematically. I think it's something like 1 out of 8 or something like that. I could be wrong. Now, senators file a lot more bills because they have no limits. In the House, you only get 6. So you're really careful about what bills you file. But still, the proportion of bills that pass to filed is pretty small.
And usually when it gets later into the legislative session, it becomes more difficult as the big ticket items.
One of the cool things about legislation is that time is a non-fungible resource. So as you move toward the end of the session, every minute you take on the floor that you're not passing bills are dying. And so a lot of really intricate policy making gets made during those last several days.
Kevin, we heard a comment from Visit Sarasota saying that it does not believe that this bill will have an impact one way or another on our chief business around here, which is tourism. I mean, do you think that you're going to find parts of the business community which are not on the same page when it comes to this?
I think so. I think to a certain extent you might see retail businesses, restaurants that might want to see. I mean, what we know is that daylight encourages activity. People want to be out at St. Armand's Circle, on Venice Main Street, walking around during the daytime, looking at into the shop, seeing what's going on. They want to sit outside on the patios and have dinner during dinner time. But at the same time, we have a lot of great amenities, cultural amenities, that you're inside. It doesn't matter what time of day it is when you go to the Van Wezel. It simply doesn't matter. And so there'll be that tug and pull, but I think there's definitely some benefits to be had. And it depends. What does the tourism want? Where is the money going to flow during the difference in the daylight saving versus standard time? And that's the real question.
On the other hand, you had that fellow in the story who said that this will help Little League in terms of saving money. But on the flip side of that, we know how it is when our kids have to get up and go to school in the dark in the morning, which has some public safety issues.
Yeah, I had a number of different mayors and city leaders contact me and said that they support it because the city's going to save money, because later in the evening when they have to turn the lights on, they're going to save money in having to turn the lights on. So it kind of is both sides. I think the real frustration from the people that I've talked to, and especially parents, is when you have to turn back the clocks, that adjustment in time for children to have to adjust to losing an hour of time and getting up earlier and getting to school has been the main challenge. So regardless of what time we end up in, which I